Hi, and you're very welcome to episode 3 of season 6 of the LOIWomen's podcast here on Final Whistle with myself, Breifne Earley. And this week I am joined as ever by Clarke, and joining us for the first time, making her debut on the podcast, Avril Brierley, Peamount United player, sometime commentator, sometime player, unfortunately going through a bit of an injury, but bad patch at the moment. But on the positive side of that at the moment, Avril, will we see you back on green grass at some stage in the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, I think I'm at the enjoyable end of the ACL surgery. So obviously he's now at this stage.
Is there an enjoyable end of ACL surgery?
I suppose the way I describe it is I spent so long. You come into the dressing room when you have the skit with the girls, and then they all go put their boots on and go out to the pitch, and I walk with my tail between my legs into the gym by myself for the hour and a half. So at least I'm pitch side with them. So back involved in training, hoping to be ready kind of May time ish. So I think the introduction of the 23s development league has been brilliant because it will give me, selfishly an opportunity to get some minutes under my belt and be ready then for senior football. But yeah, long journey, but I'm sure it'll be worth it. So
Absolutely. Well, of course, you'll be joining us for a little while that is happening in the next couple of weeks. We'll be seeing you on and off across the next couple of months as well. Plenty to talk about on today. We've, of course, got to recap on the international fixtures, small matter of the President's Cup this afternoon. I'm saying this afternoon, we're recording this on Sunday night. It'll be yesterday when you see it on Monday. But it's been a nice start, bit of a slow start in the first half, but really an exciting second half in the President's Cup today. I know you were both traveling today, so you didn't get a chance to see the game live. You just kind of seen the highlights. Maybe we'll have a look at that first and see what happened in the game. First of all, we have to say thank you very much to the FAI and the League of Ireland for giving us permission this year to include the match highlights through the season, clips and stuff from the game. So we've put together a little highlight reel from some of the chances in the goal that Athlone Town took advantage of today to lift their third President's Cup, I think. If I'm right in saying, third out of four. Here's what happened in Athlone Town Stadium this afternoon.
And we're off. Kavanagh back on the overlap shine. Over the head, Kelly Brennan makes that run. Persadder user again comes across. Hooks it with her left foot. Ball falls to Roisin Malloy. Roisin Malloy can't get the ball, gets the ball under control now. Gets the end line, drives the ball across. Slattery hooks it. Hazel Donegan. And the ball goes across, falls to Maddie Gibson, the back post. Maddie hooks it back, Emma Mooney. And what a save by Sanchez! You have to credit Sanchez. She was going the wrong way and she just stuck out her right foot.
It's all about football for her. She just wants to play football, and she doesn't matter where it is. She wants to give it one last go, and big push this year from her.
Like I said, that loan's gain, and hopefully things work out for her well this year. Garrigan does very well. Again, a bit of spell of possession. Rebecca Watkins uses her body very well, turns off the challenge of Shauna Brennan. Clancy plays a great ball into Jess Garrigan, who stays on side. Athlone looking for the offside. She cuts the ball back. Ball falls to Rebecca Watkins, and she puts it over. Oh, she puts it over from 11 yards. She'd be very disappointed. Great play from... Will she opt to do that, or will she just put the ball into the box?
Put it in looking for Chloe. The big girls in there now. Chloe, Dana.
Dana's up. Oh, lucky. Just hits her shoulder. Ball falls to Chloe Singleton, who hooks it. Jess Garrigan heads away. Chloe Singleton again. Oh!
Chloe Singleton with a volley there. Just went outside the right hand post.
Probably aggrieved not to be ahead, but Kelly Shine gives away the ball there.
Hannah Walsh again intercepts it.
That player Hannah Walsh does very well. Gives the ball into Emma Mooney. Emma Mooney, can she play Strickland? Strickland's on the ball here now. We know how quick she is. Garrigan is telling her to go outside. She comes inside back into Hannah Walsh. She has Kelly Brennan outside her. If she uses her ball into Kelly Brennan takes a touch. She's looking to play that ball first time across the box. And Dana! And the ball is in! What a finish by Dana! Great play by Athlone Town. Ball back. Kelly Brennan takes a touch. Dana, Fox in the box. Great touch. No, it was only coming together. There was nothing really in it. Great ball in, Anto. Great finish.
Dana, that's the right person in the right position at the time. There wasn't enough the ball there. We can't see who's down. I think it's Leah Dial. Leah Dial ran straight into Kelly Brennan.
Again, Evan Clancy now. There seems to be a little bit more urgency about Shelburne. Just looking. Shine plays the ball across.
Isabel
Isabel
getting
Ryan.
onto it.
She's up
Super
against
ball.
Persad,
Well
cuts
done,
inside, does very well. Cuts the ball back to the edge of the box. Emma Mooney! Oh! Carrigan off the line. Keeper Sanchez was beaten. Ball is still not gone. Sherburne going long here. Dana Sheriff is going to pick up the ball. Persad does very well. Dana Sheriff picks it up again. She's looking for Isabel Ryan. Isabel Ryan is going to go one-on-one now. It'll be first test for Lucy O'Rourke. Kelly Brennan making an underlap, does very well. Izzy Ryan keeps possession of the ball. Great ball back in. Cuts it back to Chloe Singlet. Chloe Singlet couldn't get over the ball, and the ball goes out.
She has plenty of pace, but I think she, when you're coming up against Kelly Brennan there's nobody better in the game at a right back than Kelly Brennan. So look, it's very hard for her to step in and look to get control of the game straight away.
Shelburne on the attack here now. Just one shine, get out of position. Ball across. Courtney Maguire.
Super hands.
Great strike by Shrevin there, but if I'm on the Shelburne dugout, you're talking about change of system, change of style. You might as well lose 2-0 to lose 1-0. Or is he thinking we might get one chance? Isabel Ryan does very well again. Cuts it back to Chloe Singleton, who takes up that position. Force it Dana. Alexis. Chloe Singleton again is wondering, it's not her day, and Dana then sticks out her feet, but 2.5 minutes to go. Purse Ladry wins the header. Kavanagh hooks it forward. Katie Shine comes across, heads that ball. Shauna Brennan under pressure, a little bit of pressure. Harcourt then picks it up. Evan Clancy then drives into the box, has a shot. Just over the bar.
I mentioned Roisin Malloy there, Maddie Gibson.
Does very well. Izzy Ryan is going into the corner with the ball. Thought she would have went forward, but she did the right thing again. And there we go, Athlone, our President Cup champions for 2026. A goal from Dana Sheriff. Anto, just sum it up again. Another trophy here coming to Athlone Town.
Athlone Town winning their third President's Cup this afternoon, 1-0 in the end. Dana Sheriff, who else was going to get that goal? You've played against her, Avril. Glad to see a player her quality back in the League of Ireland?
I mean, yeah, for the league, but not as an opposition player. The Sheriff is back in the town. Like, it never gets easier playing against the majority of the girls from Athlone, to be honest. I think they're in a real sweet spot moment in time, I think, as a club. The players that they brought in, they've just hit the ground running. Sometimes I do think, international players, they take a little bit of time to get a feel for the league and the competitive spirit that's in it. But yeah, Dana, Maddie, Hannah Waish, Kelly Brady, who ended up coming back, only to be picked up again. Yeah, they just make life very, very difficult for us. But in terms of the league, it's great to see her back, and she was back with a bang today as well.
It's interesting in that situation. I have a question for you both, because it was sent to me on social media on Friday, and it's a curious one that was sort of said. But Dana sort of made the decision that she wanted to come back. There's a lot of influx of foreign players coming into the league at the minute. I was asked the question, should there be a limit on the number of foreign players coming into the league? I'd be interested to get you guys' take, because I think some of them who've come into the league have been brilliant for the league. They haven't all worked. We can say that there's been some even high profile ones that have come in that maybe haven't necessarily hit the ground or are being successful. What's your thoughts on that?
I'd be interested to hear Avril's in this first, but I have my thoughts, but I want to hear Avril's thoughts on it first, because I could get myself in trouble.
It's a tricky one, because at the end of the day, the clubs need to be in a position financially to be able to offer these, whatever you call them, contracts, because you need to house them, you need to put them up at work. I'm sure those are conversations international players have before they make the jump, right? So that already, for me, creates a little bit of a divide between clubs, of the clubs that have the money to be able to do it versus the ones that don't. Obviously, speaking from my experience as a Peamount player, that's not a position that we're in, as a club. We don't have resources and facilities where we can house players. So it's one of those things. If we could, we probably would, right? And that's why other clubs are doing it, because they have got the resources and the funding to be able to bring better players in, good players in, and play them. But I can't shake the feeling that it's going to continue to create a little bit of a gap between clubs who can do it versus those who can't. It then opens up the pool for more players to access clubs versus others. So I'm conflicted on it, because, maybe if I was wearing an Athlone jersey, I would feel differently about it. It's just the bias I have towards clubs that probably can't go there financially.
Breifne, just before I get your opinion on this, like the interesting one you've just said there is like when they come into the league, because Sarah Rice is an interesting one for the fact that she initially come into, and Christy Gray initially come into Athlone, Christy Gray initially come into Shells, then gone to another club within the League of Ireland. So like that's sort of interesting on that side. I'll give you my opinion after your Breifne, because I've spent the last couple of days sort of thinking about this. You're not talking to whatever you're doing there.
Sorry, changed my microphone. My thoughts on the matter are probably a bit the same as Avril, and there are a few little conflicts in terms of how I feel it's going to go, because I think it adds quality, and quality adds interest and adds attention and adds all of that good stuff that we want the league to grow from. And it also adds a little bit of inspiration. You ask these girls in Athlone whether they're interested in going to see Dana Sheriff or Maddie Gibson or Hannah Waish play like at 12, 13, 14 years of age. Would they go watch them on a Saturday afternoon? They'll probably say yes to them quicker than they might to maybe some of the girls who, no offense to the girls who were in the original Athlone squad who struggled in the league for the first year and a half. I think that it's a yes on that front. My concern, and it's something I know we're going to be talking to Gavin Hughes later in the week ahead of the weekend's action. It's something I'm concerned for Sligo this year. We've seen it in Treaty as well, and other clubs, maybe Galway to a lesser extent, where you get a selection of girls coming in 5 or 6 at a time. They do take up resources, maybe not necessarily contracts per se, but they take up resources from the club, accommodation, extra time needed to acclimatize these girls and make sure they're settled in the cities that they come to. The majority don't work, I think, Aaron. I think if you look back over the records, for every Maddie Gibson and Dana Sheriff, there's probably 8 or 10 girls who played less than a couple of months. And I think that's a worry if you go back over the years. There's very few players who stay around. Eve Badan is one who springs to mind immediately. She's non-national, has been in the country 10 years. She's very, very slim on the ground in terms of that kind of profile of player. And I think the big concern for me is the finances in relation to it. Again, to kind of bring up what Avril was talking about, but from a different point of view, is you take a club that maybe has the money to do it, and they stretch themselves to bring in a group of players, some girls from the local area or the catchment area of that club, whether it's urban or rural, a bigger part of the country, get disenfranchised, opt out for whatever reason. Chances are they don't ever come back. So you end up at the end of the season, no money in the coffers, can't afford to bring in players the following year potentially, and you've basically lost the girls who had come up through academies and up through teams over a generation, and you end up with nothing at the end of it. And that's a big concern, is that you could see a team, and we'll use Treaty as an example, like if it doesn't work this year with the players Treaty have brought in, they could be back where they were 2-3 years ago, struggling to compete in games. And I don't think it's going to be the case, but that's my worry, is that we get this boom and bust model that we've seen in the men's league for decades, and I don't think it's positive on that front. It's exciting.
I said to you last week, certain managers tend to have a little knack of when they get the foreign-based players, they can get some really, really good ones. But like the one that springs to mind for me straight away is Heather O'Reilly coming into Shelburne. Yes, I had a massive fanfare in terms of publicity and stuff like that, but like it didn't even get people, like someone who's won multiple Olympics, who's won World Cups, didn't really get people through the gates even. And like the biggest thing is it's if a club is willing to stretch themselves to bring a player in and to sort of get them, like especially if we're talking if clubs put players on professional contracts, a foreign-based player for a professional contract, as we've had many conversations, if they're on a proper football professional contract, the cost of them is extortionate. And like it's not possible, especially with the way crowds are now. Like I feel sorry for the clubs who can't do it, because like we've had many conversations about Peamount ourselves, me and you, about how they need to sort of, and I've spoke to Elaine, to a couple of people in the club, and they sort of said to me, it's fundraising, it's raising finances, it's raising that sort of things to keep the team going, to keep them alive. And then you're sort of looking at clubs who are just going and bringing in players and spending astronomical. Like you can't overstretch yourself either, and that's the one worry that I have about the situation.
Is there a jealousy when you look at maybe Avril, when you look around you, not a million miles away from you, at some of the options and the offers that are provided to players, probably that you're familiar with and that some of your friends have moved clubs, where, let's be honest, contracts have been part of the discussion, or at least expenses or finances are part of the discussion that Peamount just can't
Yeah.
compete.
It's difficult because for me, like, it's always about what like intrinsically motivates you, right? So like for me, morals and values and, you know, playing for the pride of the club and the people that work behind the scenes and being part of a community is something that motivates me to play. And that's why I probably don't feel maybe envy or jealousy from other clubs, because I think what I have in Peamount, my experience has been, it's been quite special, and I think that's hard to replicate if you go elsewhere. So from a personal stance, no would be the answer to that, but I can totally appreciate, you know, you look around and people are in new gear every other week and like that, bringing players in from left, right, and centre. So naturally there are perks to, you know, clubs that are in better financial positions, but I think it's just down to what you believe in as a player, you know. And I think if you keep chasing those things that don't motivate you, you know, long term, you'll probably sign for every club in the country and still end up by yourself, kind of a thing. So that's kind of my stance on it. Yeah.
Does that make the 2023 League of Ireland title probably a little bit more special, especially for you? You know, because you come off the back of what was sort of happened with Peamount players leaving as well, and the sort of talk of stuff, and then, you know, you come and do it. Ellen Dolan, Jess Fitzgerald, players who've come through the club who sort of helped guide you towards that success.
Yeah, potentially. And, you know, I was a latecomer into that. I had, you know, signed for the club post the Shamrock Rovers entry into the league. So, but you're right. Like, you look at that was an entirely homegrown group of players, and you look at the Freyas and the Allens and the Jesses who came up right through the ranks, the Karen Duggans that's been there since day dot. So potentially, right, because it really felt like an authentic Peamount squad, for use of a better word, you know. And I am, maybe I'm just old fashioned, but I'm, you know, I'm starting to understand that the league is just changing, you know, and it's all well and good, you know, playing for the cause, but at the end of the day, like the way the men's league is going, it's the clubs that have more money and more finances that will, you know, eventually supersede the rest of us. So it's just, you know, for us as Peamount, how do we survive, you know?
Yeah. To be fair, you may have been a late arrival to that party, but you signed, sealed, and delivered it with the last goal of the season on the last day against Sligo Rovers. If memory serves me right, we should mention that one to Gav. Well, we have pre-recorded that interview, so
Yeah,
we won't get the chance. But let's get back to the President's Cup, because that's what we were actually trying to talk about. We got distracted by the nationality, the goal scorer. Really good opening day, particularly in the second half, where it was just chance after chance after chance, and Athlone, a load of really good, impressive youngsters. Again, we can talk about the international players all we want, but the likes of Izzy Ryan was absolutely excellent for them. They also had the girl in the middle, Emma, whose name I can't remember again. That's
Mooney.
the one. She got player of the match on the stream, but I thought Izzy Ryan was exceptional, and the usual suspects. Hannah Weish was amazing, Dana and Maddie up top, Roisin Malloy, all huge contributions. But Athlone could have probably got 5 or 6 here. Shells could have had a chance or two themselves, but Athlone were very much the better side in this occasion.
I got a text message after this game, but off a friend of mine and a fellow journalist, and his exact words were, Roisin Malloy could be in trouble this year, based off of the performance that Izzy Ryan had today. And you know, and especially when it comes from people who you would really respect their opinion. And like, for me, I think this Athlone side, like, they're going to be very, very good this year. They're going to be very, very hard to beat. I think I wouldn't read an awful lot into it. From I'm just shocked how it finished 0-0. That's probably my biggest takeaway, is that the fact that it finished 0-0, considering some of the chances that were there. But from either side, I wouldn't read an awful lot into it. Yes, it's a trophy for winning the President's Cup, but it's not one that, how you say, that will reflect upon when it comes to league performance. And I'd say when these two sides meet each other in the league, it'll be a completely different game.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where you're not quite the finished product, right? You're 2 weeks out from the start of the season. Like, even ourselves, you know, there's still a little bit of tweaking to be done. So you're right. I wouldn't look into it too deeply whatsoever. You could see, I think, quality-wise, it wasn't the most riveting game of football. Yeah, it was tight, but on another day, 6 or 7 weeks in, Chloe Singleton is scoring that goal. Becky Watkins is hitting the target with her chance and stuff. So yeah, it's one of those ones that it could kind of go either way. Just with the stage of the league that we're at, that we're just not quite there yet.
From the other team's point of view, maybe our listener was directed at you, but when you look at Athlone and they make so many changes in and around half time, and they bring in players off the bench, like they started with a strong lineup, and then they're bringing the likes of Chloe Singleton, Dana Sheriff, Izzy Ryan off the bench. Alexis Strickland had her moments. It probably wasn't a fantastic performance, but it was very good. A couple caught offside a little bit too much for my liking, but she looked lively. She looked as an outball every time for the girls. When you're looking at their forward line in particular, they have 5 or 6 girls that can fit into those 3 spots. They're probably where Liverpool men's were when they were winning the league a couple of years back, where they lose a player, the next player in is just as good, if not more hungry to try and prove that they can do it. That's got to be a little bit scary from an opposition point of view.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting as well how great, just from a neutral, to see Chloe Singleton come back as well, to see her back on the pitch after what was such a horrendous injury. And speaking to her, she had a really, really tough time with her rehab, so it was just great to see her back getting minutes. I wouldn't be worrying too much about the 1 or 2 chances that went to Began with her. But you're right to say those names are coming off the bench is it's a big concern for any defensive line that are looking. But like, I know the manager, John Sullivan, a long time, he was our head coach back in the DLR days, and he likes to use his players, and you'll see that he likes to give his game changers, as he calls them, a chance and minutes, and he likes things to stay competitive. So you'd be licking your lips if you're an Athlone player and you're not really sure whether you're in the starting 11, because under John Sullivan you'll get your chance, and he's very much, if you get your chance and you take it, you'll keep it. So I don't think Dana was looking too deeply into it, the fact that she wasn't starting, because like she proved, she knew she'd get on and score herself a goal. But how do you defend it, right? They're good in the air, they're physical, they're strong, they're technically individually very good, they're very well aligned, they've all played together for a good couple of seasons now. It's a real worry for us, and I imagine most other clubs in the league at this stage.
Would you say they're favourites for the league?
Yeah, I would, based potentially on today, that they've hit the ground running after finishing the league so well last year. I would imagine that they are favourites, but like that's an added level of pressure, and so it'd just be interesting to see how they hold their nerve for, what would it be, year 3 on the trot.
Yeah, it's tough to keep that momentum going, but there's a nice spread of new players in that group as well, to kind of keep it a bit refreshed. Let's turn our attention, Aaron. Now you're just off a plane from the Netherlands, where you watched Ireland go down 2-1 to the Netherlands last night. It's been a kind of an interesting international break. 2-1 defeats that, funny enough, I think I'd have taken the performances and the positives out of the last 2 days, even though, like, I don't want to say I've taken 2 defeats, but they were an awful lot better than I kind of expected they might go, if that makes sense.
You know what? Yes, but there's one thing about it for me that I don't necessarily like about this situation. It's, you don't want to nearly get into the nearly team. They nearly got a result against France, nearly got a result against the Dutch. Like, there was aspects of the play for me that could have been a lot better. Like the French game in particular, the volume of chances that Ireland had created and only taking one of them. The goals they conceded, probably that's the one thing that I think, when you look back at the Carla Ward side right now, that frustrates me, is some of the goals that they tend to concede. Yes, the first goal was an absolute defense split and pass, but it should never have got 2 there at that stage. And then the second goal, it's a corner. Courtney tries to come through the bodies and it's hooked back into the net. Like, it's one of these when you sort of look at it and you'd say, did they probably, could they have got a point out of either games? Yes, absolutely. But listen, you're playing against big teams, you're playing against some of the best teams in the world. You got to be clinical. You got to take your chances. You got to sort of you know, when a door opens, you have to put the ball in the net and close that door quickly. But the one thing for me, it's sort of Carla Ward hasn't necessarily trusted her squad this week for me. She initially only made one change after what was a really, really exhausting game against France. Then to go in and play, expect them to hit the ground running against the Netherlands again. And then it's late making subs. Like, I spoke to Amber last night, and like Amber was so honest after the game, sort of saying, "Listen, we need to do better. We need to be more clinical in these situations." And like, some of the players are coming out and being honest, saying yes, they're good, but they know there's more in the tank. And like, yes, when you talk about moral victories from say 2017 when we drew 0 all over there, and they probably never left the penalty box for 70, 80 minutes of the game, creating chances, but you're in the big teams now, Breifne, and for me, you know, you sort of have to be clinical in these sort of things if Ireland are to get to a World Cup. And like, I know even from a player's viewpoint, Avril, like if you're involved, say, in that sort of environment and Peamount have that many chances, you'd probably be extremely frustrated when you walk off that pitch thinking probably should have got a lot more out of that game than they did.
Yeah, and it is that famous word of the nearly, right? Because you can, in 2 weeks' time, you know, people are finished having the conversation about it, and all they're looking at is the result and the position that Ireland are in at the table. That's the tricky part. But yeah, I do sympathise, because both times when the winning goal went in, it was just like, God, for all that work, you know, it must be just so difficult for the girls to accept. But look, Aaron, you're right. Like, they're in with the big guns now, and you know, chances will be potentially few and far between. It's what you do when you get into those areas, you know.
Double header against Poland to follow in April. Given their results in the last week, is that more of a worry than it might have been?
Breifne, the double header against Poland, I don't care what anybody says, that was always going to be the two games that are make or break, because realistically, you only want to finish third in the group to have a better chance of a better playoff. Like, Poland put in a brilliant performance against the Dutch, but then again, we put in a really strong performance for patches of that game. So like, we've shown that we can do it as well. Can they beat Poland? The biggest thing about it is the fact that they go away to Poland first. It's sort of nearly a must not lose game, especially considering Poland got the point against the Dutch. And like, if they can get a draw away to Poland and then bring them back to the Aviva, like, the one thing I will say, I've never heard Tallaght Stadium rocking the way it was that last 5 minutes, the last 5, 6, 7 minutes on Tuesday night. It was absolutely bouncing with the Irish fans, and even the noise the Irish fans made even late on last night. But like, you look back at it, and like the game on Tuesday in particular, and like, it's just that little bit of quality at times that I'd like to see more from Ireland. Hopefully Poland are around the same level, they can have that little bit more quality. But like, you're chasing the goal and you've got Emily Murphy sort of sitting in holding, and you're holding the field. They're sort of chasing goals, and I'd just like to see sort of if Ireland can get on that front foot a little bit more. Like, they started the game very well yesterday. First 6, 7 minutes, probably should have scored early on, but didn't. And like, there's definitely a lot of positives to take from it, but I'm just concerned that I don't think people should sort of, how do you say, have a false expectation going into these Poland games, because these Poland games are going to be very difficult.
Any thoughts on selection in terms of players picked? And because I know I wouldn't have been overly keen on one or two of the girls that made the 11 on both nights. I would have got a different route if I was picking the team. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to get your thoughts as well. I don't think Emily Murphy got player of the match yesterday for me. I think it should have been Caitlin Hayes or Anna Patton in terms of defensive wise. I thought they headed out absolutely everything away. I don't actually think Murphy had the best of games either. I don't think Shiva had the best of games earlier. But the problem for Ireland is you can't be missing Denise O'Sullivan in the middle of the park, and that's just the big thing there. And like Carla Ward sort of said, it is an MCL issue. She's been managing it probably for the last 2 years, and you'd have to have a lot of concerns. She did say she will be available for Poland, but like, quality is probably going to be there. Like Amber said, we're over aligned on Katie to score us goals. We need to get goals from somewhere else.
Yeah, your thoughts, Avril?
I was going to just mention, briefly about Denise, because, you know, obviously every nation has, you know, a couple of standouts that, you know, they really need, but there does seem to be a heavy reliance on Denise and Katie, and like that when one is unavailable, or they're also human as well. They're entitled to have not the best game of their lives, and it's about the other 9-10 players pulling their socks up a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, hopefully Denise is available, but yeah, I just think it is just a lack of quality in certain areas. But there's just so much to be said for when you're out of possession in those games for such long stints. It's so fatiguing, right? Chasing balls down, chasing shadows, and like the work Emily and Carusa covered in that first leg against France was phenomenal, right? So it's almost that tricky point that when you do eventually get the ball, you're like, I actually just need a minute, so you're fatigued, your decision making is a little bit slower than it should be, and that's just the level that you look at the other players on the Frances and the Dutch girls of the world that maybe function on that level a little bit more frequently. But I can't see the squad changing too much.
See, that's like the problem. That's the problem for me, is that it's the energy levels, and we look at the players that are getting called into the squad, getting game time in the squad, and they're all approaching a certain age. Like there's a lot of 30 plus girls in that squad still getting game time, and I think the game itself is trending younger. We look at the League of Ireland, we look at all the leagues around the world, the technical ability of a 20-year-old now is streets ahead of a technical ability of a 20-year-old when you were 20. Do you know what I mean? Like less than a decade ago. So I think we need to see a few more of these youngsters that are really lighting up leagues around Europe, essentially, and giving them more game time.
I seen a question on social media today, and I was asking the question: how many players since the World Cup have got new caps for Ireland?
Is it 4?
I think it's around 6.
Yeah,
is the answer, and I think Carla Ward has given out 3. Eileen Gleeson gave out like 3 as well. Like we look back to probably Eileen Gleeson's League B campaign is where it's a missed opportunity, because you would have seen with some of your Peamount teammates, the likes of Freya, the likes of Jess, who would have been in and around that squad late on towards that. With 2 games to go, Ireland were qualified for League A, and yet the same team still played the last couple of games where there was an opportunity to say, okay, here's an opportunity, come and play a little bit, have a little bit of an opportunity. There's nothing to lose, there's no pressure. And it was sort of the same team again. And I think we're paying a little bit for that. I think we're also paying for the fact that like we've probably lost a couple of generation of players who left 19s, never got a look in again, and then all of a sudden, as you say there, when you're talking about that big hole in terms of the age profile getting bigger and bigger, and then if the really youngers, the likes of your Staples and your Larkins, like Abby Larkin is over 30 caps now at this stage, and like she made her debut at 17. Like I think I was reading with friends. I think there's 5 players or 6 players in the squad who have over 50 caps. The rest are sort of below that in that sort of tier, and like you're now talking, Abby's probably the 6th or the 7th or 8th most experienced player at 21 in terms of the amount of games she's played.
But still not getting 90 minutes nearly any time when she plays, which is interesting as well. For me, I don't know if she was the right call when she came in the other day either, in terms of the substitution. I think we needed... I don't know if Carla let her take the shackles off and actually just go at teams, because when she does, she can be amazing. But I just haven't seen it with Ireland since the World Cup, since probably before the World Cup.
I don't know, Avril, if you agree, but Belgium, second leg in Belgium when she came on,
I was going to say,
she was the game changer that day. Like, to be honest with you, if anybody was going to score against Belgium, it was going to be Abby Larkin. Abby Larkin was sensational. She's doing brilliant at Palace for the minute, but like, where's the next Abby Larkin coming from? If that's going to come into that squad, that's what my concern is. Where's that next player? And like, when we talk about the question about is there a limit on foreign-based players coming into the league, I think we're starting to see at this moment of time a little bit of a slowdown in the sense of the number of top talented players coming through at 16, 17. It's not as many as we tend to get it in little cycles where 3 or 4 come one year. You might get one really, really exceptional next year. You may get 2 the year after. And we're sort of in that cycle where hopefully this development league will then allow us to have them players come through on an even more frequency, because there's no doubt about it that we need to start to continue to hone our own younger players and our younger talent pool to sort of grow that, to grow the future of the Irish team.
To wrap up the international stuff. Sorry, Avril. Fire.
I don't know. I think you're right, Aaron, in what you're saying, and sometimes what's frustrating for us is that you do homegrown players and then they get picked up at such a young age, right? So the standard of our domestic league is always kind of plateauing, I find, because you get a really good, like that, the year the Stapos and the Larkins, and the quality of the football was amazing. They all get picked off and then you're kind of in a recycle phase again. But the problem is a lot of players that end up going away end up sitting on a bench for 18 months and then they go out on loan, and it's this kind of stop start after playing 90 minutes week in, week out domestically. So it's kind of, I know people are in people's ears that you have to go pro and you have to be playing football abroad and X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, you need to be playing, and I think that's, if we can get a little bit more of a push domestically, it will entice players to stay because it will give them something to stay for. And then I do genuinely think that our senior women's team, there'll be a more direct pipeline there.
But you only have to look at the likes of Anya O'Gorman, who played the vast majority of her football in the League of Ireland or the WNL before that. It's not. She was one season at Doncaster, maybe, very early on in her career. And other than that, she's been in Ireland ever since, whether it was DLO or Peamount or Shamrock Rovers, where she ended up. And she was arguably one of Ireland's most stalwart players over the last 15, 20 years. So it can be done. It's about how the player applies themselves. But you're right, this draw of this professional lifestyle, and I think people get sucked into it maybe by seeing some of the stories around the men's game in terms of the lifestyles they lead. I think bar a handful of players in the world, not even in the country, but in the world, no women's footballers live in that lifestyle. They're just about scraping rent if they're lucky, subsidised by family or friends, or little fundraisers here and there for the most part. If they're earning a living where they can comfortably go for dinner whenever they want, or they can comfortably go on a holiday once a year, that isn't really happening. At least anecdotally, that's what I'm hearing back. That's not happening. You might have a better idea. But
you're probably talking your Katie McCabe's, your Denise O'Sullivan's, players of that sort of stature, but players who are playing in the championship aren't. And then, I don't know if you've seen last year when Tyler Tolan was with Blackburn, where they sort of said they were going to nearly put it down to a minimum wage have them on 21-hour weekly contracts just to sort of money, and that's not sustainable. That's not the future. And whereas players, you're right, people are in players' ears sort of saying you need to go, you need to be playing abroad, and it's the magic airplane, as we nearly talk about it sometimes. Once you go, you're there, and it's not a case that they're going to be playing regularly, and it frustrates me. I'm just hoping, because I agree with that, Avril, and we've sort of spoke about the plateau of the league and where it is and where it fluctuates. So it's frustrating because you want to see the League of Ireland successful.
Yeah, you do, absolutely. I'm going to end up the international thing because we're running out of time, but in a word from both of you, we played Poland twice. We need 4 points to give us a chance of securing that third place in Group A. Is that achievable over the two games, in your opinion?
Yes, it's achievable. Will it happen? It's difficult, but it is definitely achievable.
Your thoughts, Avril?
I believe it is achievable. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my heart says yes. My head says, oh, I'm not really sure.
Listen, back to Gdansk, back to where Ireland played in the Euro, same stadium. Hopefully we can pull off a 1-0 win away.
Excellent. We're going to have a quick chat about the Women's Development League. We did, before we recorded the podcast, we did sit down with Fia Murphy, the captain of CK United, who had a blistering start, all things considered, to their season 3, first teams they've played against this year. Let's have a chat with her first, and then we'll come back and have a chat about the weekend's action across the league. They had a 1-1 draw with the Treaty United. Here's what we had a chat with Fia about earlier. Now, after a couple of good results in the Women's Development League, we're delighted to be joined by Captain Fia Murphy from CK United. 3 games played, 1 win, 1 draw, 1 defeat. Not a bad start to life in this new competition. Fia, how have you been enjoying it?
Good, yeah. It's a step up from the 19th. So I was overage last year, so I was fine, not easy, but I had the advantage over most of the girls. But now this year, we're meeting players that are 23 that played senior last year or is coming down, and it's you can definitely see the step. but it's really, really enjoyable to play, and the football's excellent.
What's Carlo Kilkenny? They've been in the men's leagues, underage leagues for years. They come into the women's league, underage leagues. I think probably one of the most famous faces who probably would have played for Carlo Kilkenny underage would be Aoife Kelly, who's with Shelbourne at the minute. What's it mean for a team within that region to have another sort of team within this league and have that potential option of you could see another sort of a Carlo Kilkenny based team playing Premier Division football?
Yeah, so like CK had started men's team 2018, and then we got a women's side 2019, and like when it had started, like I'm not going to say the good players, but like all the players that had been playing football had gone elsewhere. So like there was the likes of Kylie, she was obviously very settled in Wexford, and then Aoife had already gone up to Dublin. So like I'd love to see like the likes of them come back. Hopefully if we get a senior team in first division next year, I'd love for like them players that are Carlo based to be able to come back and play Carlo. It'd be so nice to see.
And I suppose it's tricky then, because you know the club puts so much resources and funding into these players who they'll inevitably lose once they become too old to play for the under-23s, right? So what does that look like for you guys when you kind of reach your peak at that level? Like, what's the next option for you?
Yeah, so the next option would be go elsewhere to a club that has a senior team, or hopefully CK, like the lads behind the scenes are really, really pushing for us to get a first team in the next year, and hopefully with the under-23s they're going to do the promotion. So like if we finish, I think it's top 2 of the league that doesn't have a senior team. So like likes of Shamrock Rovers, if they finish first, they can't go up because they already have a senior team. We're hoping that now that starts. I don't think it's starting this year. Hopefully they said something about next year. Yeah, they're hopefully that's starting and we get to step up to that level, because I think like the girls that are coming in, we got players this year that are excellent. So like it'd be really nice to be able to step up.
Just based on the question, I'm not sure if you know, but actually there's 9 clubs, first teams, that are senior teams in that second tier. So CK United can play any age players. They've no, it's not under 23 for them. It's under 23s for the teams that are in the Premier Division. In terms of, I suppose, the season so far, Fia, it's been a bit of a whirlwind for you personally. You've been playing right back, number 2 on the jersey. Goalkeeper gets sent off. Of course, you played in goals underage, so you end up back in goals. You win the game. Am I right in saying you scored the winner as well?
Yeah, I had a free kick before I went in goal.
Yeah, and then you're back in goals today because obviously a suspension kicked in with your normal goalkeeper. How do you get your head around that when you've finally, as I was a goalkeeper, and every goalkeeper's dream is to play outfield, usually up front, scoring free kicks. But you make that step, you get out of goals, you're delighted, and then circumstances happen, you're back in goals 20 minutes into your second game. What's going through your head?
So I had actually, back in academy, I had actually started outfield. No, sorry, I started in goal, and then we had a different goalie and I wasn't getting game time, so they threw me outfield. Was playing outfield for I think 2 or 3 years. Then obviously that goalkeeper had to step up, so I popped back in goal and was playing in goal from then up, and then took a break from soccer completely, went to play GA, and then came back, had 1 year in goal, and I went and played club then, and I don't know, I just didn't really want to play in goal. So I was like, I was actually playing left back, that's my position. And I came back and playing left back with CK. And then we kind of touched base about me going back in goal if Toya, our goalkeeper, had gotten injured. And I think it was the week before we had said it. And then the Wexford game, she got injured, and I didn't even have to think about it. Like, there was no sub goalie on the bench, and I wasn't going to put anyone else in that position. Like, I know the position, like I played it for years, so I was like, it's just an instinct. Like, straight away I was like, I'm in, and I knew coming into this week that I was going to have to be in as well, because Sophia had a game yesterday, so they weren't expecting her to step up. So it's not really anything. I wasn't really stressing about it because we had touched it. Like, I had done goalie training during the weeks and it was fine, so I didn't really mind.
A stunning free kick and a 1-0 win against Wexford. What happens then if a free kick is on, say, 20 yards out from goal? You're in goal. Are you coming up to take it? We've seen some pretty good examples of goalkeepers over the years that are coming up and striking them free kicks. Are you coming up, or are you staying back and letting someone else take it?
No, we have plenty more people that can take that free kick. I'm not making my way up there, because knowing me, I would probably miss kick it and I'd have to make my way the whole way back down the field. And that's not something I want to do.
Fair enough. So come here, because this is all very new to me. So I can imagine that it's great because we have a good few of the girls that come up and play with us senior level. Do you now see like actual career paths for players that come up through the ranks entirely? As a young, I carry on like I'm an L1, but as a young person now in the league, is that what you guys talk about? You talk about paths, 19s, 23s, seniors potentially abroad. Like, is that the conversations you guys have amongst the dressing room now?
Yeah, definitely. Since they changed it from 19s to 23s, it's definitely something now. And like Shane, the director of football in CK, he's pushing so hard for first team. And like when I started playing CK, I was playing it underage, and that was probably it, because like at the time we didn't really, like, we're such a small club. I didn't really see a first team coming into play, but now like, and they're getting so much opportunity, and like we're linked with SMUSA, so their career path for America. And they're 3 years ago, I went over on a trip with them for football in America for 9 days. I love that, and he's been so good to the girls. He came in and done a training session and like informed the younger girls, like doing the leaving cert now, like how they can go that way. And I don't think any of the girls knew that route was possible for them, but like now they're really like, I know a few of the girls had gone up to his trial open day. Like, it's great to see.
Wow.
And is that for scholarships or is that for actual professional opportunities in the US?
No, it would be scholarships going over there for like college for 4 years. But I know girls that have got football opportunities, like professional, over there after college.
In that sort of sense, like as Avril sort of said to you, like previous years you might have sort of said, go to play with CK United, finish 19s. There's not really a lot of options, but like surely from a female standpoint, especially as we look at that, it's International Women's Day, we see the sort of celebrations around that. Like, does that give you hope for what the future is going to be for Irish football for a female, especially for the next generations even coming behind you?
Yeah, definitely. Like when I started, we'd have the parents on the sideline, like that would be it, just the parents and no one else. But like I'm coming up to the games, even home games, especially. Like I do see like so many people, like people's friends group do be coming to the games, or like their brothers, and then their brothers' friends do be coming, or there's like it is great to see. And especially CK, like when I first started playing, I'd be like, oh, I play for Carlow Kenny, it was at the time, and like some people around where I live like would not have an idea. They think it's club, like they'd honestly think it's club football. But now like they are asking me, like if I go to the shop, they're like, oh, how did you go on this weekend? Like, oh, who he is playing? Like it's lovely to see.
Yeah, and I think if you guys can hang on to that community feel within the club, you know, as you progress through, you know, standards and professionalisms, because, you know, naturally I think the bigger the club gets, the more you lose that, you know, it becomes a little bit less personal and it's people from here, there and everywhere. But I do think that community led spirit goes a really long way in the Women's National League in particular. So do you think that's something that you guys will try and prioritize?
Yeah, like we, even now the season has only started, and I know we have 3 weeks off in March, and already like all the managers are trying to group together and try pick things for us all to do as a team for us to keep close, because we have a few new girls in, and I was worried kind of because we have such an array of ages. Like there's 20-year-olds, and then like some of the girls are 15, and like it's a massive age gap, but we have really knitted together, and like it's nice. Like, so hopefully, as you said, like that is what kind of keeps the football going. and keep the teams going. So I'm hoping we do keep that together, and like the lads are really rooting for like us to keep close and keep doing stuff together.
3 games in out of a 20-game season, bang smack in the middle of the table, as we talked about. 1 win, 1 draw, 1 defeat. What's the realistic target for you? You talked about top 2. I know that promotion doesn't come into it today this season, but what is a realistic target for you? What have you kind of set your stall out? Are you looking at top half, top 4, top 2? Like, where can this group of players get to, in your opinion?
I honestly think so. Like, we're obviously competing against the top teams like Shamrock Rovers, Shells. But I think top 6. I do think that with the players we have and the skill levels, that like is all over the board, from goalkeeper to strikers to like even now, like she's struggling, like Leanna's struggling to pick a starting 11 every week because of how much quality is in the team. So I think top 6 is what we're looking for to finish off. Top 4 if we're really hoping.
Just in terms of when you say top 4, top 6, you've got what 5 or 6 Premier Division sides in.
They've already played 3 of them, Aaron. They've already played 3 of them. So the 3 games they've played are all first. Sorry, I've interrupted you, but I was going to talk about that later. I think it's amazing, the results so far. Sorry.
So, like, in terms of that, right? Where do you assess sort of where you are as a group? Because as Breifne said there, you played so many of the so-called senior team, the so-called teams who are having a second team in it, who would have players who'd be up and down from senior team, from the 20, as Avril said, like Peamount would have players who'd be training with the first team. Treaty United, who you played today, would have players who were involved in the first team. Where would you assess sort of how you've gone on over them first couple of games?
Yeah, I think this week and last week especially, we were asked a couple of weeks ago, I think it might be in the very first match, we were asked at a half-time, did we expect to win this game? And looking around, a few of the girls didn't. I personally didn't think we had it in us, but then we went out, like the grit and determination that some of the girls, like that we all have as a team, is unbelievable. So like if we can keep that up, I honestly think that we can easily push, like as you said, like we've played 3 of the top teams that have a senior team that can play players down, and like coming out with the results we've come out with really shows. And if we can stick this through the whole 20 games, like I don't see us having the problem finishing top 4.
And forgive my ignorance now here, because I'm not entirely sure of the rules with getting players up and down. Can any senior player come down and play just 1 fixture against you guys?
Yeah, I think once you're
3.
over
3.
Yeah, and I think once you're, for us, we can play anyone. We can play anyone over the age. It doesn't matter if you're 23 or over. But I do. Is it for the senior teams that you have to be under 23 to drop down?
They can have 3 overage. I think it's 3 overage players, because if you look at last week, Athlone Town played Dana Sheriff and Chloe Singleton against Bowes, so they can have certain players coming down. The whole thing is, Avril, it's sort of to give an opportunity as well. If, say, somebody's coming back from a long-term injury that they're not necessarily ready to come into the league or play League or in the Premier Division straight away, that they can come in, play a couple of games, get themselves back up to speed.
Yeah, no, I appreciate, because I imagine when I'm back fit, that's probably where I'll start. I'm just curious as to, how teams like yourselves, Fia, feel, right, when you guys say you are pitching for top 2 towards the end of the season, and you have a big fixture coming up, and Peamount know they need to win, and they bring 3 of their best players from the senior team down. I just find it difficult to appreciate the fairness of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like we know coming into this that was a possibility, that like we're going to be up against teams that are bringing players that are coming back from an injury playing against us. But like we just have to train week in, week out, and like our training has to be as physical as our Sunday matches are going to be. We've always said that. We always said that needs to happen on a Tuesday and Thursday for us to be match fit no matter what comes. But yeah, it does be frustrating when you're standing there and you're like, you're going to be playing a senior game against the top team next Saturday. But look, what can you do, really?
Yeah,
I I think what might end up happening is I think the natural justice will kind of play that out in terms of there's very little in it for a Shamrock Rovers or a Peamount or an Athlone to flood a team because they can't be promoted into a division they're already in. So I think the spirit of it hopefully will be observed by most, but of course you can't really force that either. Fia, listen, just delighted to have you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on and having a chat with us about all things CK United. It's great to see you. I won't mention the Gaelic thing today, particularly as a Leitrim man talking to a LOIWomen after you beat us to flip us to Division 4 earlier this afternoon. But the smile says it all. It's a good day for Carlow Sport, good month for Carlow Sport with both the Gaelic teams and CK United doing so well. Best of luck for everything through the season, and I'm sure we'll be chatting to you or your teammates at some stage in the rest of the show.
Thanks a million.
You started to talk there about CK United's community, the club. You're involved in the club who relies so much on the community, the people, the volunteers and stuff like that. What does that actually mean to a player to sort of see the commitment that goes off the field? Because you look at even people like you've got the likes of Barbara Ryan Doyle, Dennis Cummins. Like you have people who have been involved in that club for a long, long time. Elaine Thompson. What does that mean for as a player when you're sort of seeing the sort of commitment from the volunteers?
I know I've said this earlier, but just speaking personally, it's very motivating for me to see people give up their time freely, right? At the end of the day, all of those people, the Katies, the Babs, the Dennises, the Lanes of the world, are there so I can arrive at training, have everything I need. I don't have to worry about A, B, or C, and I can just get on, do my gym, go out onto the pitch and train as best as I can for the team, and then go home and have nothing else to worry about. So the fact that people are doing that in their free time, for me, is just, it's unbelievable. Like that for me in itself is motivation. And I always remember when we went away to Champions League in 2024 and we'd won the first game and I was out with my ACL, and then the second game we'd just narrowly lost and all the girls were heading back into the dressing room and myself and Katie were walking back pitch side. Katie's been involved in Peamount, I don't even know how many years. She's been through Champions Leagues before and she was sobbing on my shoulder. I mean, like inconsolable, because she just loved the group so much. She loved the girls. She felt that we deserved more from it. And I'm like, that is what we should all be playing for, is people like Katie who feel so strongly about this group that she's literally on her hands and knees because the result didn't go her way. And I think people really underestimate, the value of that. And I just fear that just the way the league is moving, that we are slightly starting to lose that aspect. And for me, that is disappointing, but maybe I'm just old fashioned and need to get with the times a little bit more, but it's a very special place, and I had that same feeling when I was in DLR and I stayed there for 6 years, and we were getting, at some stages we were getting absolutely bashed, other stages, we were really starting to improve the club. But I thought the cohesion and the togetherness that we felt, because it was just boots on the ground, it was volunteers, it was people showing up on gammy days. And for me, that's what sport's all about, So I just think Peamount have such a sweet spot when it comes to that. And, you'll interview nearly every player present and past from Peamount and they'll all have similar stories,
Yeah, you never hear like negative vibes coming out of Peamount, to be fair, for anything. And we were invited, I think, at the tail end of one of the seasons, last game of the season. I think it might have been that league.
The only one the league.
2023, yeah. I think where you actually took on the MC role at one stage to give a bit of a tribute, which was probably one of the funniest things I've ever heard off a stage, if I'm honest. It was a really nice feeling. The place was full, packed with people that I didn't know any names because they're just the unsung heroes that show up to support, that show up to fill water bottles or wash kits or whatever for all the age groups, the whole way up, for not just from this adult team, but under 10s, 12s, 8s, whatever, the whole way up to the club. So and for a club like Peamount, that is essentially a small junior club, to be at the level they've been at for so long consistently, and it's not even just the League of Ireland days. Like my own experience would go back to probably the early noughties. Peamount were one of the best teams in Dublin at the time. You probably UCD, it's St. Francis kind of came when Peamount folded, but St. Francis came out of kind of Peamount as well, and UCD, but you had Peamount, you had Raheny, St. Catherine's would have been the big four teams in the DWSL as it was at the time, but they were still competitive, still competing for league titles and cups and FAI cups as well, and that's before the structure as we know it now was there. So it's been decades. A lot of that down to the likes of Dennis Cummins, who you can't mention Peamount without talking about Dennis, and others like Katie Thompson. Just the phenomenal groups of people around there. We have.
I'll never forget. Just one thing. I'll never forget 2020 when they won the league, and I've never seen so many stewards at a game during COVID. When they went the night they got the league trophy presented, and every person was a steward. There must have been a steward every 5 yards, and you could see how much it even meant to them, sort of at that stage and things like that. And like, to me, that's what it is. It's all about that sort of that club, that community environment, and like it's one of these that like you hope Peamount has a time in the league. You do have concerns the way that the way the league is sort of going with men's League of Ireland clubs. You've had a lot of concern. We've had conversations about that over the past, Breifne, but like they are without doubt, they'll always be in the history of what they've done within the League of Ireland.
Absolutely. We have run out of time though, so I'm going to take a quick look back through the results of the weekend as far as the Women's League of Ireland divisions are concerned. If we start with the President's Cup, of course, we saw the highlights earlier on in the show. Athlone Town 1, Shelburne 0. That was the final score in Athlone Town Stadium this afternoon. In the Women's Development League, we have Longford Town 0, Shelburne 2, Cork City 1, Waterford 0, DLR Waves 2, Shamrock Rovers 1, Finn Harps 2, Drogheda United 1. Another great result for Finn Harps there. Kerry 0, St. Patrick's Athletic 4. Good win on the road for the Pats. CK United 1, Treaty United 1, as we heard from Fia earlier in the programme. Cove Ramblers and Wexford 2-1 to Wexford there, while Galway United and Sligo Rovers was not played this weekend. In terms of the league table of how that looks, Shell's top Group A, they have 7 points from their 3 games. Dundalk, they have Sophie Hanlon, who we had on 2 weeks ago, 2 hat-tricks in 2 weeks. They didn't play this week. They have 6 points, 100% record for them. Athlone, only the 1 game played for them too, with 100% record, and they are just behind Finn Harps in that table. In Group B, 4 teams on 6 points from their first 3 games. Shamrock Rovers, DLR Waves, St. Patrick's Athletic and Cork are on that table. 3 more, Treaty United, CK United and Wexford on 4 points behind them. The under-17 scores from the weekend: Athlone Town 6, Mayo 1, Shelburne 5, Drogheda United 0. Wexford versus CK United was abandoned according to FAI Connect. Dundalk 3, Finn Harps 2, Waterford 3, Club Kildare 0, Galway United 8, Sligo Rovers 1, Shamrock Rovers 5, Bray Wanderers 0, Bohemians 4, Longford Town 0. Treaty United a 1-0 win over Peamount, while St. Patrick's Athletic, they repeated that double 1-0 yesterday evening against Kerry FC. Group table: Shamrock Rovers and CK United top of Group 1. Athlone Town, they top Group 2, 9 points from their first 3 games. Galway United in second place in that table. Group 3, it is Pats just ahead of Peamount and Treaty United. While Group 4, it's Bohemians on 9 points with Shells and Dundalk in chase on 6 points there. So that's the results of the weekend. Avril, you're going to be back with us later in the week for the preview show of next week's fixtures. Thanks very much for joining us. Aaron, as always, it's a pleasure. We'll be back with you in a couple of days to look forward to the weekend's action. Talk to you then.